Hey guys, it's Kier. Now, I'm still working on the Cup of Ice and Fire videos, so stay tuned for the Valyria episode, which will be coming up soon, because you know how your girl likes to do it up major. So expect the Valyria episode to be jam-packed with tons of good information about the book world. But this video isn't one that belongs in the regular Cup of Ice and Fire series. So why am I here if we're not talking about regular shit? Well, it's because I stumbled on some leaks that will tell us all about what we can expect in Season 7, Episode 7 of HBO's hit TV show Game of Thrones. I've got to warn you before you go any further, if you don't want spoilers, you need to click away now. Like, right now, fam. I don't want anyone bitching in the comments about spoilers, because if you're still watching after all these warnings, then it's your own damn fault. But I love you for watching, so thanks. But don't complain. Anyway, today I'm here to talk to you about what goes down in the season finale of this season of Game of Thrones. So if you haven't had a chance yet, go watch episode 6 and then go watch the trailer for the next episode, which you can find in the description box below this video, or if you just search YouTube for the official Game of Thrones channel, they'll have it on there too. Now on to the leaked information. Last year and this year, there were massive leaks of both plot breakdowns and scripts online that had everyone shook and questioning whether or not these were legit. I myself didn't really know what to make of them. I considered making a video or maybe even like a short series of videos to cover the leaks, but I was also apprehensive about that because if they turned out to be fake, I kind of wanted to save face because I'm proud like that. So in order to save face, like I said, I sat on the information, I didn't say anything about it, didn't make those videos, and I just kind of let it slide. Anyway, season 7 rolls around, and to my astonishment, pretty much every single thing that was predicted in this particular leaks that I'm talking about came true, including the part about Viserion turning into an undead dragon, and Gilly stumbling on the fact that Rhaegar and Lyanna got married and that Jon's not even a bastard. And even the plot of Littlefinger pitting Sansa and Arya against each other, all of that was in these particular leaks. And since there have been acknowledged hacks over at HBO and accidental leaks and whatnot, I actually think this might be the real deal. I also want to take a second here to mention that I've gotten my hands on what appears to be leaked script for season 8 of Game of Thrones as well, and I'll be making a video or a series of videos on those episodes, so just keep your eye on this channel to check it out if you're interested. But I'll tell you ahead of time, those leaks do not seem as verified as the leak that we're talking about in this video. The other major thing I feel I need to disclose to you about this leaked script is that it is not a complete script, but rather a series of scenes. There seems to be some kind of numbering system involved on the pages of the PDF of this script, so we do have some idea of where the scenes fit chronologically, but there's also this big giant void marker that goes through the pages of the script, kind of like a more obvious watermark, and sometimes this mark covers up words and numbers, so it's not always easy to tell what's happening when. You guys also know that in Game of Thrones, scenes tend to jump around. So for example, we might have one scene in King's Landing, followed by one in Winterfell, and then followed up by one in Dragonstone. The story's focus shifts from one character to another, so these scenes will air in a mixed up order, but I'm going to be presenting them here in this video as individual scenes grouped together by plotline and location. Let's start this discussion by talking about the scenes that we saw in the clips of the trailer for the finale episode. And that's the big meeting in the Dragon Pit. This is a massive scene that all the fans will be looking forward to seeing, including some 17 major characters, and has a bunch of great reunion moments between some of our old faves. I'm going to begin where I think this sequence of scenes begins, chronologically speaking. So this scene should be opening up with the Targaryen fleet arriving in King's Landing. The Unsullied and Dothraki will be stationed outside of King's Landing. As the joint forces of Dany's foreign armies are laid out before the city, Bronn and Jaime are watching from the city walls with admiration. Meanwhile, a party including Tyrion, Varys, Missandei, Jon, Jorah, Davos, Theon, and the Hound land on the beach with their captured white. Brienne and Podrick, who have just arrived after being sent south on Sansa's behalf, quickly join them. As the party travels together towards the dragon pit, Brienne is reunited with the Hound. Now, they haven't seen each other since the end of season 4, where they had that big epic fight. They start talking, and eventually their conversation leads them to Arya, and the Hound pretty much calls Brienne out for not being in the north to protect the Stark sisters. Brienne says something like the only one needing protection is anyone who gets in Arya's way. The Hound seems proud of Arya and says that he doesn't plan on ever getting in her way. While the reunion between Brienne and the Hound is happening, one of my personal favorite team-ups are also getting reacquainted. That's right, Tyrion and Podrick are getting the old band back together. And Podrick is all like, "I still heart you, sir, captain, my captain," and all that stuff. By this point, our merry bunch has made it all the way to the dragon pit. The official King's Landing walking tour has arrived at the final tourist attraction. Here they have a conversation about what the dragon pit was used for and stuff like that. As Team Targaryen / Team Let's Fight the Night King round the corner to the entrance of the dragon pit, a large number of Lannister soldiers, headed up by Bronn, meets them and escorts them the rest of the way in. Once they arrive in the dragon pit, a bunch of other lords and representatives of other organizations also start to appear. Cersei still hasn't arrived, and Tyrion begins to worry that she's about to pull some kind of evil trick like what she did when she blew up the Sept of Baelor. But no worries, Cersei is just making an entrance. She's not trying to blow this place up. She's just being fashionably late and trying to show all these other hoes that she's still that girl by making everyone wait on her. When she finally does arrive, she has Euron Greyjoy, the Mountain, and Qyburn at her side. At this point, the Hound and the Mountain exchange these like death glares at each other because they obviously still hate each other. But they don't fight or anything, so sorry, no Clegane Bowl, guys. Instead, the Hound has the captured white in a cage with him, and he takes the cage to the middle of the pit. As the Hound is bringing this caged white into the middle of the pit, it appears Cersei is not bothered by any of this. Maybe she can't see from where she's sitting, like what the white looks like, and so she's not really sure what all the fuss is about. She's just over here sassing Tyrion like, "I kept my end of the bargain, I showed up, where's this dragon queen of yours?" And then, as if she heard this with like supersonic hearing, Dany shows up on Drogon's back and is like, kind of like Nicki Minaj at like the MTV Awards, like, "Hey Miley, what's good?" She's got Rhaegal with her too at this point, and everyone who hasn't seen dragons in real life yet gets shook. Even Cersei and Euron are a little bit fucked up at the sight of the dragons, but Cersei snaps out of it right quick and she's like, "But where's the third dragon?" And Dany's like, "Well, that's a good question, and that's why I'm here, and why I asked all of you hoes to come here too." At some point during this exchange, Euron decides that this is the right time and place to be fucking with Theon. So Euron tells him that Yara is still alive and that Theon can rescue her if he isn't a coward. So obviously that's got Theon shook as fuck. Or should I say reek? Who knows anymore? So after all of this is said, Jon, he kind of gets sick and tired of dealing with all of this sass-mouthy bullshit. So he tells them they all need to shut up, band together, fight the Night King and the army of the dead, because the threat is real and they don't have time for games. Cersei doesn't believe him, so the Hound opens the cage with the white inside of it. Now this thing pops out of there ready to kill any and all motherfuckers in this crazy rage and goes straight for Cersei's face. And it gets pretty near by her too, but luckily the Hound has the white on a chain, so it doesn't actually reach Cersei. But seeing it gets Cersei for real shook. To prove that the undead can't be killed by normal methods, the Hound then basically chops this white up into pieces, but the pieces keep moving and shit. At this point, Jon then joins the Hound's demonstration, and he tells everyone gathered that there's only 2 ways to kill a white. First, he says fire, and here he sets fire to one of the chopped up bits, and it stops moving. And then he says dragon glass, and here Jon stabs another piece of the white with dragon glass, and this piece stops moving too. That's when Jon says the stuff that we saw in the trailer about how the real war is more important than anything else and that it's already here. After watching the demonstration, Euron Greyjoy acts like he's super scared and he asks Jon how many undead there are in the Night King's army. And Jon's like, hundreds of thousands and then some, brah. So then Euron's like, yeah, but can these fuckers swim though? And of course, as we've seen in the last episode and in Hardhome, no, they really can't. So Jon says they can't swim, and Euron's like, well, peace out then. I'm gonna wait this shit out in the Iron Islands where they can't get me. And he fully dips. He just leaves the dragon pit. For her part, Cersei also acknowledges that the threat of the Night King and the undead army is real, but she nevertheless insists to Jon she must be queen when the long night is over. She promises to help in the fight, and promises that she'll even make Jon the Warden of the North, but only if he swears fealty to her and to House Lannister. Jon says he can only serve one queen, and that's Daenerys. He bends the knee and swears fealty to Dany right there in front of everyone in the dragon pit. This angers Cersei, and she storms off to the Red Keep. With Cersei gone, Brienne steps to Jaime and says that whatever happens, he needs to come with the Lannister army north and fight on the side of the living. Jaime says he admires her loyalty to the Starks, and she tells him this isn't about loyalty. She's doing this because this is humanity's only chance for survival. For his part, Jaime seems actually convinced by this whole affair, between the demonstration and Tyrion saying this was a big problem and now Brienne saying it's a big problem. He seems pretty much convinced that they really do need to fight the Night King, and that's the biggest fight. While Brienne and Jaime have their heart-to-heart, Jon, Dany, and Tyrion are in their corner, just trying to figure out what the new plan will be, since it seems like Cersei is not down to help. Somehow, Tyrion ends up going to the Red Keep to try to talk some sense into Cersei. At first, things are tense between the estranged siblings. Cersei obviously sasses him in the usual way about how he's super into foreign whores who don't know their place, and how he's always been plotting to destroy their family. Tyrion gets fed up with her bullshit accusations and explains to her that he wasn't ever trying to destroy the family. In fact, he tells her that originally Dany's plans for King's Landing were to rain down fire and destroy the Red Keep. Tyrion was the one who talked her out of it. Cersei wouldn't even be alive right now if it wasn't for him. At this point, Tyrion starts drinking and notices that Cersei isn't drinking, which is weird because he knows she's basically an alcoholic. He deduces that she must be pregnant, and he asks her about it. She doesn't say anything, but her facial expression gives it away. They end up talking for a long time, and eventually the brother and sister rejoin the other people who were also in the dragon pit. That's when Cersei announces that Tyrion managed to get through to her and that she will commit troops to fight in the north against the Night King. She has seen the error of her ways, and she knows that this fight for life is the most important thing that she could be doing with herself right now. At some point later, back at the Red Keep, we see Jaime standing in the courtyard with the giant map of Westeros painted on the floor. He's planning out how the Lannister army will journey north when Cersei comes up and asks him what he's doing. He tells her, we're getting ready to fight the Night's King, and she's like, nah, B, we're off that. At this point, Cersei reveals her true plan, because she wasn't all kumbaya with the good guys' plan. She says, don't worry about the North. They have armies and dragons, so they can handle it. Jaime questions her, asking her what the hell she's on about. She tells him that she's betting on the Night King destroying Dany, her dragons, the Unsullied, the Dothraki, the armies of the North, and the armies of the Vale. She's pretty sure that all her enemies will die in the North, killing each other. Then she reveals her real deal, which is that she actually got another loan from the Iron Bank, which allowed her to purchase the mercenary army called the Golden Company, who generally live in Essos. She also reveals that Euron's earlier retreat was actually a clever ruse that they plotted together. He didn't really fuck off to the Iron Islands to hide out the long night like a coward. He went to Essos to get the Golden Company for her. With her evil plans revealed, Jaime finally sees Cersei for who she truly is and decides to walk away from her. Let's close off the Jaime and Cersei storyline by going to the last scene we see of Jaime. He's no longer dressed in Lannister armor, but he's dressed more like Bronn, an unaffiliated sellsword. He's on horseback, and he's got his golden hand in a glove so that no one will recognize him. He's left King's Landing, and he looks back at the Red Keep one last time, then turns his horse north and goes off to join the fight against the Night King. But tellingly, the script says that Jaime is a lone horseman. He might be dressed like Bronn, but it doesn't say that Bronn is with him. And he's also not bringing the Lannister army. Now that we've covered the scenes of the parley in the Dragon Pit and the fallout for the Lannisters in King's Landing, let's talk about the other plot lines and locations. Just to remind you again, not everything is in the right order because it's not always clear which part goes first or last. That being said, you can apply some logic to this and use the numbers on the pages as a guideline to give you some idea of where stuff will go. Anyway, the first subplot we'll be covering is the stuff going down in Winterfell. So, we start off with a scene where Littlefinger is telling Sansa in private that Arya is dangerous, and the only reason that she returned to the north is to carry out some evil plot against Sansa using the letter that she'd found earlier in the season. Later on, Sansa has gathered all the Northern Lords and the Vale Lords in the Great Hall of Winterfell. She sees Arya standing at the far back of the hall and their eyes meet. Sansa talks about punishing those who have betrayed the North, and while still looking directly at Arya, says, "How many times have you betrayed the North and House Stark?" Again, she's still looking directly at Arya. Arya apparently looks scared and worried that Sansa is trying to start a fight with her. Sansa repeats the question, but this time she says something like, "How many times have you betrayed the North and House Stark, Lord Baelish?" Then she starts listing off all the times that Littlefinger betrayed her family. At this point, she takes out the cat's paw dagger, and it's revealed that Bran Stark is sitting next to her. She then asks Littlefinger if he recognizes this dagger, and he says, yeah, it belongs to Tyrion Lannister, which is the same stuff he told Catelyn Stark all these years ago. And then Bran says, "You once told my father not to trust you." And just like before when Bran said that chaos is a ladder thing back to Littlefinger, this ability of Bran's to see these little secret moments of Littlefinger's has got Littlefinger shook as fuck. So Sansa then openly tells the North and Vale Lords about how Littlefinger sold her to the Boltons and what she had to endure because of it. So Littlefinger is reeling, kind of aware that his number is up, but he keeps lying about what he did. Before long, that turns to begging and all these lords get disgusted. Anyway, Sansa reminds Littlefinger that when he brought her back to the north to sell her off to Ramsay Bolton, he told her there is no justice in the world unless we make it. She then thanks him for his many lessons, and I think she says she won't forget them. Again, there is this giant watermark on the page that makes it hard to see if she's saying she will forget them or she will not forget them. Either way, after that, he says Sansa's name, and Arya walks up and slices his throat before he can even see it coming. The lords of the North and the Vale all watch Littlefinger fall to the floor and die, and no one moves a finger to help him. After the execution of Littlefinger, another scene occurs in Winterfell, just after a storm has passed over the castle, and now the two Stark sisters are standing on the parapet, and I think this is the spot that Jon and Sansa are usually having their heart-to-heart convos. They're looking out over a snowy landscape. Arya asks if Sansa will be alright, and Sansa nods and says even though it was strange, she knew that in his own twisted way Littlefinger loved her. Then Arya acknowledges that she could never be as good at ruling as Sansa, and she could never have survived the horrors that Sansa had to endure. Sansa replies that Arya is the strongest person she knows. The sisters exchange understanding but loving glances. At this point, our old buddy Samwell Tarly and his girlfriend Gilly and Gilly's baby all show up at Winterfell. Bran recognizes him because remember, he did meet Gilly and Sam and the baby on his way to the north while Gilly and Sam were escaping from beyond the wall. So he recognizes these guys and he lets them in. And he's asking Sam, what are they doing there? Sam tells Bran he needs to find Jon Snow because he has so much to tell him. Bran asks Sam, what exactly are you going to tell Jon? That's when Bran reveals the whole Jon isn't really Ned's bastard, but Lyanna and Rhaegar's son. He says something like, Jon's not Jon Snow, he's Jon Sand. Like, all bastards born in Dorne have the last name Sand. And that's when Sam gets really excited. He says he's seen records that say Rhaegar and Lyanna were married secretly. So that means Jon isn't a Snow or a Sand. His real name is Jon Targaryen, legitimate son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. They look at the book that we saw Gilly reading a few episodes before, and they see that there's this marriage information there, and they both wonder if it's real. Sam tells Bran, go ahead and use your new three-eyed raven powers and look into the past and confirm if this information is true or not. So Bran does what Sam tells him to, and he goes back in time to the wedding of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. And then he goes back to the Tower of Joy, where he finally hears the part that Lyanna whispered to Ned that we as the audience couldn't hear before, and that is she's telling Ned that the baby she's giving him, that's Jon Snow, should be called Aegon Targaryen. This is going to be a very significant moment in the story, and I, for one, even though I know the spoiler, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out in the show. And that's pretty much it for all the scenes we have at Winterfell. Now let's talk about Team Targaryen restoration after the scenes in King's Landing. So we're back on Dragonstone in the room with that huge table in the shape of Westeros. It's Dany, Jon, and their whole team. They're all up in there. They're planning the defense of the North, fully expecting that the Lannister army is going to be helping them. And at this point, Jon and Theon start talking, just like, reminiscing about growing up in Winterfell. Jon asks Theon if he will come to the North with them. But Theon tells him he's got to go rescue Yara first, and Jon kind of encourages him to go do that. From there, I think we follow Theon to talk to the Ironborn that survived Euron's attack, and try to convince them to help him. The leader of these remaining Ironborn will challenge Theon, and this will eventually lead to them fighting, and Theon winning the fight and convincing the Ironborn to help him rescue Yara. After the departure of Theon and the Ironborn, the rest of Team Targaryen also leave Dragonstone. So now the scene that we're seeing will be on the flagship of what's remaining of Dany's fleet. It's going to be Jon and Dany in the ship's cabin, and they're slowly taking each other's clothes off and getting into some sexy business. So I guess it looks like Jaime and Cersei are not the only people in club incest. So Jon and Dany having sex on the boat is pretty much the last time we see Team Targaryen for the rest of the season. And now the focus shifts back to the Wall. We're back at Eastwatch by the Sea, where we're meeting up with Tormund and Beric Dondarrion. They watch in shock from the top of the wall as the army of the dead has now reached them. The Night King mounts Viserion, and the undead dragon breathes out blue flames that melt a section of the wall. The gap formed is wide enough for the army of the dead to march through. And that's where the episode and the season ends. So that's it for Season 7 of Game of Thrones. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you want to find out what these leaks are saying about Season 8 of Game of Thrones, then keep your eye on this channel. And if you're a show watcher who hasn't read the books, but you're interested in what they're all about and about all that deep and meaty backstory, then I hope you check out my regular Game of Thrones related video series, A Cup of Ice and Fire. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and see you all later.